This whole thing going on right now, which has been apparently a huge thing to the point that Van Halen actually was trending on social media about the pop star Billie Eilish did an interview. And in the interview, she was asked or whatever about Van Halen and said she didn't know who Van Halen was, which has created some sort of outrage in some circles. Now, here's where you're probably going to be a little surprised on my take on this. And if you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw me make a tweet about it last night. Now, I'm sure a lot of you folks probably think me being Mr. Rock will just pile on Billie Eilish for not knowing, and how could she be so clueless, and whatever claims you want to throw at her. I actually have the complete opposite feeling about it. I don't understand what the big deal is. I don't get it at all. Like, why is that surprising or even newsworthy? That's a thing. Like, why would a 17-year-old girl who clearly is not into rock music, certainly doesn't perform it, certainly doesn't write it or create it, certainly has no connection to it in terms of her music that she's making. So it's not like, here's my thing about this. Like, if Billie Eilish were a rock artist and she said she's never heard of or doesn't know who Van Halen is, unleash the hounds, go crazy. Because if you're going to be into rock, you should have some pedigree about knowing the history of rock and knowing the roots of it. But even so, someone that young, you could almost see. But if you're 17 years old and the music you make has nothing to do with rock music, so clearly it's not your thing, why? Why would she have to know who Van Halen is? Why is that even surprising? Put it in context. And here's the other thing I said on social media last night. You're not talking about a band in Van Halen that's been all that active in the last 25 years. How many times have we covered this? Van Halen released an album in 95, which was widely panned, and an album, I don't know what year A Different Kind of Truth came out. I don't remember the exact time. I think what year, Ed, look this up when you get a chance. Van Halen 3 came out in what year?
Well, hang on, because A Different Kind of Truth came out in 2012.
So I'm thinking Balance came out in 95. Or was it Van Halen 3?
Hang on. Balance was 95. So Van Halen 3 was late 90s.
Okay, so probably like 98-ish for 3. Okay. So even if you take Van Halen 3, which I believe was 98.
It was 98.
Okay, I'm terrible with years, but okay, I'm right there, 98. So let's take that time space. 1998, Billie Eilish still not born, by the way. Still years from being born. Van Halen 3, which out and out flop, let's be honest, in terms of a record. Since then, Van Halen has put out one record, A Different Kind of Truth, which you said came out what year, Ed?
2012. And for sake of comparison, Billie Eilish was 10.
She was 10 when the last Van Halen record came out, wasn't born when the record previous came out, and neither of those records made any substantial mark in terms of airplay and awareness really beyond the hardcore Van Halen fans, let's be honest. Why would this girl have any awareness, knowledge, care, or concern for Van Halen? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know where the outrage is. I don't know why this is shocking. If Billie Eilish played rock, I could almost see it. She has no connection to it. Why would she? So this one, I am totally baffled by people making such a big deal out of it. Wolfgang Van Halen had to come out and post a tweet defending her. I guess, people killing her for not knowing. Why? I mean, my daughter is 2 years younger. I don't know if she knows who Van Halen is. I'll ask her tonight. Because I think people just look at Billie Eilish and like, oh, she's in the music industry, she has to know. But she's completely disconnected from that world. That's not what she does. If she was in a band and her brother was some guitar shredder and they were playing rock music, well, yeah, you could get crazy at that point almost and say, how the hell does the guy not know? She's dancing around to a track. I'm not taking anything away from whatever her talent is. If you're into it, great, have fun. But it's nothing to do with rock. And this ties into another thing, which makes me absolutely insane. When somehow pop artists who are a little different, a little overly flamboyant, just have a little bit of a different presentation about them, even though their music has nothing to do with rock, somehow get positioned as rockers. Oh, that's a rock star. He's a rock star. She's a rock star. When their music has nothing to do with rock. That makes me insane. So stop with that. Now, I'm not saying you can't make pop music and like rock, but don't tell me or don't try to tell me someone is a rock star when they don't play rock. So because Billie Eilish dresses in baggy clothes and seems a little affected and sticks her tongue out a lot and has flames going up during one of her shows, she's a rocker. No, she's not. She is not. There's nothing. It takes more than sticking your tongue out and shooting off pyro to be a rock artist. Post Malone, a guy who we talked about yesterday, clearly likes rock, is clearly a fan of rock and metal. That's wonderful. Please don't try to tell me Post Malone is a rock artist. Well, he's got tattoos on his face. He must be a rocker. Stop. He's a pop artist. Stop. Lady Gaga shows up in an Iron Maiden show wearing the shirt. She jumps out with Metallica during the Grammys and dances around and sings. Lady Gaga's a rocker. No, she's very talented. She's a pop artist. It's not an offense. It's what she is. Newsflash. You're a rock star. You're a rock artist if you perform rock. So I think there's a little bit of that going on with this whole Billie Eilish thing, because we all see these ridiculous horseshit award shows who don't have a clue in life about rock, putting pop acts and things that clearly aren't rock into rock categories. Because God forbid they have any real knowledge or anybody on their nominating committees that actually know anything about rock to actually make a genuine, real rock category. So instead you get this amalgamation of like 21 Pilots with the chain smokers mixed in with a random rock act. Like, it's nonsense. But all of a sudden they become rockers because they were in that category. Like, it's bullshit. Let me be clear. I'm not dissing the other genres of music. I'm not dissing those artists in any way. This is more about perception and media and how things are put out there. So why would a 17-year-old girl who wasn't even born when Van Halen was really basically been doing anything, who is completely immersed in another world of music and has had massive success doing it, and congratulations to her, why would she know Ain't Talking About Love or Fools or Romeo Delight or Sinner Swing or On Fire? Like, what? Why? Like, did she ever come out and play Light Up the Sky and think that it was not a cover song? Like, what? Why? So this is a lot about nothing, and it's the world we're in that for 24 hours, it's a big story and everybody finds a way to get a take on it and pounce on her. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing whatsoever wrong with her not knowing who Van Halen is. She may not know who Led Zeppelin is either. But see, that would be a little bit crazy because here's the thing. And I would not be upset if she didn't know who Zeppelin was. But here's the thing. Remember the band we're talking about here. It's not like Van Halen in the last 25 years has toured every year or even every other year. It's not like Van Halen in the last 25 years has had anything close to a hit single. Van Halen's not exactly out there, folks. They don't do press. They haven't really toured in a while. They've had no recorded output of note in a long time. Do the math, do the timeline. Why would a girl was like 10 the last time they even put out a record? No. Well, if she listened to classic rock radio, I guess, but she clearly isn't in that world. So I just don't get what the outrage is about the whole thing. I don't get why it's even an issue. And again, tomorrow it'll be over because that's the world we're in. Everything's got about 24 hours of viral and trending and everyone, just blasting about it, which I just fell right into, of course, the last 10 minutes. And then it's on to the next. I'm going to give you one that'll really blow your mind. And then I know I got to hit a break. And this is why this is so not even worth anything of even any substance news-wise to me. So I mentioned Luke from the Struts. Merging band. They've been around, 5, 6 years, whatever it's been, 7 years. Doing great business, doing really well. They're a rock act. Certainly not even nothing to do with metal, but a rock act. Touches on some elements of pop, touches on some elements of hard rock, but for the most part, a rock and roll act. Throwback sort of 70s rock band. We're at the table at the Rainbow a couple weeks ago. At the table is a couple of my other friends, namely Brent Woods, who was on the show with Taylor Hawkins because he's in the Coattail Riders. And Brent also plays guitar in Sebastian Bach's band. So I'm sitting with Luke from the Struts, and we're talking, and I forget what came up, but I said to Luke, I said, yeah, Brent plays guitar with Sebastian Bach. Luke didn't know who that was. He didn't know who Skid Row were. Now, this is a guy in a rock band. grew up in England, still lives in England, and he didn't know. And that floored me. And Brent, who's sitting right next to me, said, Luke, how old are you? And Luke, I think, said he was 30. And then Brent says to me, Eddie, the last Skid Row record came out in 1995, and it really didn't do much, even though it's a great record. Subhuman Race. Luke was 5 when it came out. There's no, do the math. Now, the difference is Skid Row in their current lineup is fairly active, although at a way lower level than they were back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Sebastian is still out there and a pretty big character for sure that people would know. But Luke was oblivious to it. So it's not, so when you consider that, you've got to look at the timelines here. You've got to look at how old people are and what's going on and where they come from and what part of the world they come from and what was immersed on them and what they grew up with and what they saw. And did they grow up in the MTV era? Was MTV already gone by the time they were older? I mean, gone meaning whatever it is now, the garbage it is now. It's all based on demographics. That one, I admit, was really surprising. Because he is a rock artist. But then when Brent, sitting next to me, said, Eddie, he's 30. And we did the math, and then realizing he did not grow up in America, where Skid Row may have been looked at or not, especially in the time he was growing up, was over already. Yeah, it didn't register for him. We told him about him. Now he's going to seek it out. So it's not some sort of great offense. It's not some sort of great diss. It just comes down to where you were raised, how you were raised, what music you're into, and how old you are. Anyway, I am super late for a break. As usual, I get going right out of the gate here. You know me.